Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Zone Star State podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Ishmael Johnson. And Ish, it's feast week, so we have basketball every day from like 11 a.m. to like past midnight. Today we got Auburn and Iowa State. That's going to go past midnight. But yeah, just college basketball all day, every day. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I thought you were talking about the North Texas versus UNT game or Houston game the other day. When you talking about feast week.
The North Texas versus Houston women's game, which I did not have on the docket to talk about today, but yeah, North Texas.
Mention it. It's not great.
North Texas was the next team to take it to Ron Huey and Houston.
One of my friends texted me, it was just like, "Oh, North Texas huge win over Houston women's." I was like, "Not really." I was like,
huge win. I think everybody is.
It's that meme. It's that meme of the guy putting his hands on the shoulder of the other guy. Just like, let me tell you something, brother.
North Texas gets a Big 12 win.
I mean, yes.
Technically. But yeah, North Texas gets that win. Houston continues to erode. But there's a handful of games I want to talk about, and I think a big picture conversation, which I think is interesting as well. We can start on the men's side because this is the dominant topic I wanted to talk about coming out of the weekend was Texas men's. We haven't talked about them since their opener against Ohio State. And since then, they've reeled off some wins, and they've now put themselves in position, I think, to be talked about as one of the better teams in Texas, especially with Baylor's struggles and maybe the questions with A&M and so on. But Texas is now 5-1. They beat Syracuse and St. Joe's in Brooklyn, both of them in Brooklyn. I mean, it's not away games technically, but I mean, those are two East Coast teams. And to get both of those wins, I thought was really, really impressive. I went back and dug into the film and watched those games. And I left, I don't want to say like super impressed with Texas, but I definitely think those are wins that they would have lost like the last couple years, especially the St. Joe's one. They were down. Syracuse came all the way back, took the lead. It was a tight game the last few minutes, and they find ways to win it. So give credit to Coach Rodney Terry and this team because those are good wins.
Yeah, I agree. The Ohio State loss, I'm thinking more that Ohio State might actually be pretty good this year. Yeah. They lost a tough one to A&M, but they've been just like crushing teams. Like everybody, like I think they beat Evansville by like 50 or something. Like it's been stupid. They beat Campbell by 40. And again, these are teams that are in the 200s, but like 50 or 40 point margins are what they are. Like they're just pure dominance.
And they're not against pretty good
teams. And so I don't want to make it seem like, ooh, the end of the world, that's crazy. They lost to Ohio State. Ohio State's probably going to be in the top 25 throughout the whole year. I know they dropped to like the 50s last year, which is why they got rid of Chris Holtman. So that's looking a lot better in retrospect. And like you said, Texas is the past two wins over Syracuse and St. Joseph's. Syracuse, also a team that, new head coach, or rebuilding kind of, but still, I think going to be a pretty solid team this year.
Eddie Lampkin, over there at Syracuse. Eddie Lampkin over at Syracuse.
Yeah, dude, literally I think it might finally be his last year of eligibility. But I'm with you. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Am I seeing, or do I see a Texas team with tons of upside and star power and like a team that's going to be in the top 5 like they were a couple years? No, right? But what I am seeing is a team that I think Rodney Terry can work with that is going to be a very, very interesting team to watch in the SEC. I don't think this team was built to win this year, like win a national championship this year, but I see the pieces of like building something special. Obviously, Trey Johnson's going to be that guy that potentially takes them to as far as they need to be, but I'm seeing a lot of role players. I'm seeing a lot of inside, again, we'll talk about some of the inside options like Shedrick and Kaluma, but I like what I'm seeing from them so far. They're a fun team to watch. I'll say that much. They always haven't been a fun team to watch. And there was part of me that was worried about this year being just Trey Johnson and friends, and it's more than that.
Yeah. I think the best way to look at it is, well, we knew Rodney Terry wanted to shake things up coming
Yeah.
off of last year, right? They gutted the team, brought in all these transfers, brought in Trey Johnson and whatnot. So we knew it was going to be a different team. So I am impressed that the defense has looked as good as it has
Sure. Yeah.
to this point. I think the one thing with the defense that stands out to me, and I like when we can watch a game and then I go check the KenPom to back up my thought. Watching the games, it's like teams don't get early offense against them. They don't get out on the break. They don't get early offense. And I went and checked KenPom. Sure enough, Texas is 354th in opponent possession length. So they are forcing teams to use the entire clock constantly. And I don't think it's like great defensive personnel, but it is good job from Rodney Terry and that staff to be able to not give up the easy stuff early in possessions, which we see, I think like a team like Baylor, we talked about before, like some teams just give up some easy stuff early on, and Texas doesn't give you that.
Yeah.
So right now they're 11th in defense on KenPom. And a lot of it is because I do think they just kind of make you work for it a little bit more, which is all you can ask for. They don't have the best defensive personnel, but you do have a Kendall Weaver. I think Kaluma and Shedrick have been good enough in the front court, and Onyema's a good athlete and so on. So the defense is kind of where I start with Texas here, and I think that raises their floor higher than what maybe I thought it was going to be coming into the year, because I didn't know they would be. We'll see if it sustains, but I didn't think they'd be a top 15, top 20 defense in the country going into the year. I was kind of hesitant on that.
Yeah, I think the concern we had a lot about this team was the size inside, right? It was particularly we thought they'd be a little too fragile, right? It would be a little bit of too much tall man and not big man, right? As Bomani Jones says.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, I think that was intentional from Rodney Terry, because everybody on this that touches this floor basically has length, right? They're not the biggest, no, but like you can throw out a lineup of Trey Johnson, Shedrick, Weaver, Larry, and a lineup like that, and all of a sudden you have like length everywhere, and it is hard to get around those guys. So you have somebody like Caden Shedrick or Jason Kent or Arthur Kaluma who can just switch, and you're able to, Caden Shedrick's not left on an island if he's guarding a point guard, right? And so I think that's something that I completely underestimated when I looked at this team. Because of course, looking back at Rodney Terry's UTEP teams, they weren't the best defensive teams either. But when he obviously has more resources, this is the team he kind of wanted to build. And I'm like you, I'm very impressed so far, because we'll see if it continues. But even if they finish top 20, top 25, right? I think that's impressive. Even top 30. I know they were top 30 last year, but like this is an entire team of Rodney Terry guys now, right? And if they maintain that top 30 defense, okay, like that's a huge plus to what they're able to do going into the future.
Yeah. It was big to get Tremont Mark back. Those were his first 2 games of the year. And so we both are fans in terms of his scoring ability, and we said off rip that this team was going to need Tremont Mark to come in and score for them, because at its core, this Texas team is 2 guys that have the green light, Trey Johnson and Arthur Kaluma, and then a lot of glue pieces, which I like. I like Kendall Weaver, Julian Larry, Pope as well. So when you add in a Tremont Mark, he's able to come in and fill it up immediately. I mean, against Syracuse, what did he end with? He had 2 threes in the first half that helped buoy them. I think he only played like 10 minutes in that game.
I'm curious, because he's coming off the bench now. I know he's coming back from injury, but I'm curious if that kind of stays the same, because I kind of like him off the bench a lot.
I think so, because I don't think they're going to bench Weaver.
Yeah,
I don't think they're
right.
I
think Weaver. I mean, he's the Brock Cunningham role, right? It's with a little bit more offensive upside, but
he's way better than
bit of
Brock.
What was that?
I think he's way better than Brock.
No, I'm saying I know, but he's the Brock Cunningham role of he's not going to get the most points, but he can contribute. But he's there to rebound and defend, right? That is he kind of sets the tone. Just like Brock Cunningham probably shouldn't have started some of his seasons, but the idea was you can play 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then bring up the guy who's Serge Ibaka Rice or something that comes off the bench. Kendall Weaver, I don't think he'll be a 30-minute. He'll ever be a 30-minute guy, but he'll be a 20-minute tempo changer. And so that's what I meant more. Yes, he has 100%
No, you're
more
right.
offensive upside than Brock Cunningham.
You're right for sure. Yeah, he's the rebounding for Weaver is
Yeah.
just awesome.
It's a little bit of, you know what? Actually, a better comparison might be Josh Hart.
There you go.
It's a little bit of Josh Hart now. Now, Josh Hart in the NBA, because in college he was definitely more of a point guard scorer, but like definitely that type of guy where you look up and you're like, how's he have 7 rebounds? You know?
I mean, Kendall Weaver leads the team in defensive rebounding percentage right now. He's 156 in the country in defensive rebound percentage, and he's also up there in offensive rebound percentage. I mean, he's going and getting it off the rim. So that's a huge factor as well. I think those were mostly my points. But Kaluma and Trey Johnson will continue to have the green light and continue to shoot the ball a lot. And Trey Johnson, man, he didn't play great against Syracuse. He was like 4 of 16 at one point. He ended 4 of 18.
Yeah.
But then he bounced back and it was awesome against St. John's or St. Joe's.
St. Joe's.
I just think he has, even when his shot's not falling in, the 3-point shot's been kind of inconsistent for him to this point. But I say that. Oh, let me double check. No, I say that he's still 46% on the year, even though he was 1 of 7 and 1 of 5 his last 2 games. So that's like kind of how great he's been. But yeah, he's surpassed my expectations, and he doesn't do anything really but score the ball. But he's even surpassed my expectations as a scorer. He's just been phenomenal.
Nice. What was it? Was that all on Texas you wanted to do, or is there more?
Yeah, no, I think let me check my notes real quick to make sure. St. Joe's had a little bit of success inside. They had a few stretches of offense rebounds, but nothing crazy. Oh, the last thing on Texas was I was going to ask is this the second best team in Texas? Are you taking them over Baylor or A&M? I don't even know who else. Texas Tech. Like that group is very hard for me to discern.
Yeah, I think
KenPom has A&M and Baylor slightly above them.
I think right now I'm taking A&M. And I know Tech lost to St. Joe's, but I'd probably put Tech with Texas right now in my eyes. It was a close game for St. Joe's, and then they beat Syracuse as well. So Baylor, I think Baylor, Tech, and Texas, I'll probably put them in that. Baylor's lows have been pretty discouraging. That was a bad loss to Tennessee.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. We were on the pod the day that they were going to play Tennessee.
Yeah, that was a pretty man. I'm getting really worried about that defense. Like severely worried. And I'm getting a little worried about, I don't think Roach's offensive output that I expected from him so far. So again, early, we'll see, but it's not good signs right now for me. So right now, Baylor's in that pack with Texas and Texas Tech, just because I would assume they're going to fix it.
Yeah.
But I go Houston and A&M right now, number 1 and 2.
Yeah, fair. Definitely a good group. That was the last thing I had on Texas. Yeah. Where'd you want?
I was going to say, speaking of Texas Tech, I wanted to give a shout out to, I don't know if you follow Stats by Will on Twitter. If you haven't, anybody listening to this, if you don't subscribe to his newsletter, go ahead and do that, because it's one of the, he's one of the best advanced analytic guys out there. He primarily, he went to Tennessee, so he primarily covers Tennessee. Yeah. But I got a little interesting tidbit in my inbox on the 22nd from his latest newsletter. And it was, is Texas Tech's JT Toppin college basketball's next breakout star? And it's a really good breakdown of his start to the year so far. He cites KenPom, he cites Torvik as far as where he's kind of dominating right now. And I don't want to, we don't have to go in too in depth in this, but I guess me and you, because we were so high on him before, I think we are kind of underestimating his start to the season, because right now he is 5th in KenPom's Player of the Year standings. He is 2nd in Torvik's Player of the Year standings. And as far as wins above replacement percentage, he is 2nd in the country behind Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton. So he is absolutely taken this by, and he's played one more game than Ryan Kalkbrenner and 30 more minutes because of that. So he's been stellar. offensive rebounding percentage, he is first in the country at 26%. Right. So that's a quick plug for Will. If you don't follow him, stats by Will on Twitter, and he has a advanced analytics newsletter that he does. I did not realize he was that good so far. And it just gets me more excited to be like, okay, like I feel so justified in saying that Tech's gold mine was getting him on this team.
Yes. Yeah, Tech's big investment over the offseason was getting him,
yes.
And then retaining the players they had last year, obviously.
Right.
But you get him and you get Elijah Hawkins, and now we can compete with the top end, because the top end talent on last year's team just wasn't there. And so now Texas Tech being serious about basketball, which we know they are, like that's the investment. That's pulling him out of the NBA draft and getting him to come here. Like that's huge. So yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because we probably have been under. I don't want to say we didn't underrate him. Going into the year, we were telling everybody how great he was going to be.
Right.
And now he has lived up to that and some.
Right.
And so now, yes, we do.
And we're just kind of like, oh yeah, we knew he'd do that.
Yes.
Because even in the loss to St. Joe's, 22-12, 2 blocks, 2 assists. Right. And so it's like everything really does just go through him. And we can go probably more in depth on Tech when they start playing, they play A&M in December. We'll probably go more in depth then, but like everything with this Tech team is just like really, really pointing up, which is why I kind of have them slightly positioned around Texas right now. They just have the common opponent loss, which is why I haven't put them ahead of Texas.
Yeah. Topping at 22 and 18 in that game. 12 of them were offensive rebounds.
Jesus Christ.
12 offensive rebounds.
Oh my God.
That was
so good, man.
They probably should have won that game. Like they had a shot to win it at the buzzer. They should have won that game.
That was the Darian Williams shot, right?
Yeah, then we could have had a Texas versus Texas Tech game in there, but
yeah.
Oh well. All right. Anything else on the men's side? Because I wanted to flip it.
Nope. That was all I had on the men's.
This was one of the best women's games of the year, if not the best. SMU Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know this was. I somehow missed this initially, and then I scrolled through scores to make sure I don't miss anything, just for this exact reason. And I see SMU beat Lamar 58-56.
Yeah.
So I went back, and I was like, I have to watch this. So I watched the condensed game. Shout out to the ACC for putting together a 12-minute condensed game here. And Lamar is really, really, really freaking good. Like Lamar was beating them up. Lamar was up, I believe it was 37-26 in the third quarter. Like they were up in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, they were up 43-34. And I'm just like, how is SMU about to do this? Like, how is SMU going to come back? Because Lamar's offense was rolling.
Yeah.
Sabria Dean was hitting threes, which we know she can hit mid-range jumpers, but she was like hitting catch and shoot threes. I was like, Lamar came into this game like not afraid. Like at this point, Lamar knows what they are.
Yeah.
And they know they're really good, and they don't flinch. Like Texas beat the heck out of them, sure, but like that's Texas. That's the top 4 team in the country.
Right.
Everybody else, you're gonna get it. And Akasha Davis was awesome. Sabrina Dean was awesome. I wanted to initially, before I do anything else, give my flowers to Lamar. It was 56-54. Sorry, not 58-56. But that's a really, really good result. And I know Uncle Franklin's going to be frustrated that they lost that game. I would be frustrated too as a coach, because similar to what we said about UTSA when they lost to A&M, it was like you go into that game expecting to win. Because that team is not like the talent difference is not drastic here. The size difference is not drastic. Lamar was beating them up. And so you do, as Aqua Franklin, leave that game frustrated that you don't win. Akasha Davis played 40 minutes. I mean, this was an overtime game, but 40 minutes. Sabria Dean, 39 minutes, 21 points, 4 assists, one turnover on 7 of 15. Just a really, really good game from Lamar. And every time we watch one of these Southland teams, it's like in my head, again, conference hasn't started, but it's like Lamar, A&M Corpus Christi, heck, RGV has been really good this year. I'm forgetting someone in that mix from Texas. I know Southeastern's going to be good, but like the Southland battle in my head just continues to move up and down. So before I'll talk about SMU here, but
Yeah.
I did want to talk about Lamar to start
Yeah.
that off.
I'll say Armani Taylor as well. I want to give a shout out to her.
Yeah.
She had some sick passes in this game as well to Acacia Davis. So like, yeah, I think for me, I think we're another thing we're validated on is Lamar. So we may not be talking about Lamar that much this season because we're kind of like, this is what they do, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it gets into conference play. We'll talk about them when they play their big games in conference, but like we're using this now to talk about them because we know once they get in conference, we're just going to expect them to roll until they get to Corpus or something. With that being said, like I think I'm going to use that as a jumping off point to talk about SMU because I am kind of impressed that they came out with this game because SMU was a team that I didn't really expect. I have high expectations for, and I mean in particular Jessica Peterson, who was somebody who SMU is not a big team, but you know she's kind of one of the only players that match her and Brianna McLeod are kind of some of the only players that match up, in my opinion, that well with Lamar. And a lot of it came through with like, "Hey, Jessica, what you got?" And it was like her inside. Like, what does she finish with? Let me see. 12 rebounds. Sorry, 17 rebounds, 12 defensive rebounds, 5 offensive boards. And it was a lot of that where it's like, hey, you got to face probably the best rebounder in the state right now, and you got to battle her on the boards. And they ended up getting plus, what are they on the rebounding margin? Plus 13 on the rebounding, which is not easy to do against Lamar. And so I don't care that it's a Southland versus AAC. This is a Southland team that's going to run through that conference and an AAC team that I didn't have high expectations for. And so for them,
SMU people are going to come after you if you keep saying ACC. Or AAC, sorry. You said AAC. And I was like, oh, SMU people are going to be in our mention.
Good point. My bad. ACC team that I didn't have high expectations for. And they held serve, man. They had a game plan. Lamar came in with a game plan and SMU said, all right, let's go. And if this is the way the game's going to go, we're going to go play ugly, right? I don't think either team shot well, 32% versus 36% from the field, but like it was about who can make the other person bleed more. And in the end, it was SMU that survived just enough.
Yeah, halftime was 28-17 Lamar.
Yeah,
in case y'all were wondering how that game went. I'd also wanted to say Nia Robertson, who is, I believe, one of the leading scorers in the country. Yeah, she is 23 points per game. You know, she's been kind of hit or miss efficiency some games, but for the year, I mean, 39% from the field, 36% from three.
She's almost 10 threes a game. Like she is a gunner.
Yeah, she is letting them fly.
Yeah.
But she had 8 straight points to take the lead in fourth quarter, which eventually it's a tie game. But Nia Robertson is 23 points per game, the most points scored in the state right now. That's got to be the leader in the state in terms of men's and women's, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
23 that's top.
23, I was about to say 23 is quite a bit. Because I don't think, let's see, Trey Johnson, I think, went down.
Oh yeah, Trey Johnson's up there.
Maybe, but I think he went down after a couple of like below 20 games, but not too much. 20. He's at 21. So Trey Johnson's at 21. He's the only one that I would have up there.
Yeah, this is our scoring champ right here. Nia Robertson does her thing and brings them back. Shanta Embry, we know, is a good player for SMU. She had 10 points, 9 rebounds, helping out Jessica Patterson. So they do have a nice little 1-2 punch.
Yep.
There, and then Nia Robertson can get hot. So, like you said, this is a good win for SMU. Like, don't care that it's a Southland team here. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, A&M probably loses that game down 11 in the third quarter. Like, there are teams that would have lost that game, and so SMU to pull that out is substantial to me.
And also must need to win because they had lost to Arizona State and Minnesota, so like they were on a little bit of a downturn. Again, we'll see. They got UTA coming up. Excuse me. They got UTA coming up, Texas Tech, and then North Texas. So like there's going to be some interesting games where we're kind of realize how good is this SMU team heading into this year.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to shout out that game because that was one of the more fun games we've had this season so far. And the last one, Baylor women starting to really worry me. They lost to Indiana 73-65.
Yeah.
and I this morning watched Indiana lose by like 30 to North Carolina. So
Mhm.
I'm over here like I thought Baylor was in that North Carolina range, and Indiana's
Mhm.
not a bad team, but um, they went down 17-2 in the first like 5 minutes of the game, and I'm like, where? How does that happen?
Yeah.
How does that happen? Now they bounced back and they beat Villanova today. I didn't get eyes on it, but still, it just doesn't feel like it's a team that has been able to put it together yet. Now, I believe in the upside. I think it's a top 25 team still,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just the Big 12 is going to be tough. It's going to be real. TCU's out here putting together some games.
I was about to say TCU. We're gonna have to keep TCU can win that South Carolina game. Like
Oh yeah,
South Carolina, we saw there. We obviously knew they wouldn't be last year South Carolina, but like UNC or UCLA was it that beat them? They
UCLA beat the
beat
brakes
them
off them.
down. Like that was a very interesting statement from UCLA as like a national title contender, and
Yeah,
I think TCU has the pieces to do something like that.
they
So
play
yeah,
they play Notre Dame on
yes,
Friday.
yep, that'll be a fantastic game too.
That is an incredible game. And then they said South Carolina December 8th.
Okay, yeah,
So I
I'm
mean this
very interested in that game.
yeah, this stretch Notre Dame, South Florida, FAU, then South Carolina
Mm.
is a fun stretch here. And while we're on it, I didn't see it,
Mhm.
but yeah, Haley Van Lith, nice little 27-point game, 10 of 16 shooting against Idaho State.
Yeah.
Um, she's putting it together. She has the green light we've talked about, but she's really starting to put it together. So if she's playing at this level, like you said, all right, I'm putting them up there in the top 20 somewhere, top 15 maybe somewhere. We'll see where exactly they rank, but
Yeah.
this is the Big 12 is really interesting. Iowa State lost to was it Northern
Mhm.
Iowa?
Mhm.
So we're over here like who's gonna win the Big 12?
Right. For me, getting back on Baylor a little bit, the thing
Go
that
ahead.
like disappointed me with this loss was like the perimeter defense just wasn't there. Like Indiana got so many looks just by driving inside. Right. Like they were able just to beat people off the dribble. And I don't want to put it all on Von Lay as like an anchor, but like eventually you got to give your big some help in terms of like stopping penetration.
Mhm.
um, everything either looked like a layup or a kick or a driving kick for Indiana. And at one point, I was just like, I don't know how they stop that. Like, I just don't see outside of the obvious, little pitch bugs. Like, I don't know how they fix that, in my opinion, because I don't think this is a great Indiana team this year. It's fine. I don't think they're definitely rebuilding compared to last year.
Yeah.
Um, but let me see. Shea Cedric had like 34 points. Like most of them inside. She had 13 free throws, so she was just getting constantly inside. It was very frustrating.
It looked easy for Indiana for a lot of
Right.
that game, and that's the problem. It's like against Oregon, or Oregon also made it look pretty easy for a lot of their game.
Sure.
So now we have multiple, bullet points of Oregon and Indiana, the two. And I didn't see the Villanova game, but I don't think Villanova's on that level of Oregon and Indiana.
Yeah.
So you have two data points of being like, hey, the defense really, really struggles to like keep people in front, and they don't have an anchor in the paint, like you said, and they allowed Indiana to get to the line like 30 times. So yeah, it's a very real concern, I would say, at this
Yeah.
point.
I think for the other thing I'm looking at, because I was trying to see something in the numbers, if anything like that stood out to me. The obvious one is that Sarah Andrews is really struggling from the floor. She's shooting only 31% right now from the field. 30% from three, 34% from two. But the other thing, so like that's thing number one is like, okay, their offense maybe isn't as good as it could be. The other thing that's really concerning is they're giving up a lot of possessions. Like I know they played one more game. I'm trying to think they played one more game than typically people in the country. They played 7, while most have played 5 or 6. But they're still getting into a lot of track meets in terms of like they're giving up a lot of shots. They're getting a lot of shots. It's very high points per possession type of stuff, and that's kind of concerning right now. We'll see how much that evens out as as the rest of the country kind of gets up to their schedule, because again they've played one or two more, but that's something to keep an eye on. I think I'm not worried about Sarah Andrews yet. We'll see, but right now Dariana Littlepage Bugs their leading scorer, which I like her a lot, but like I don't think she's leading scorer caliber.
Yeah.
I don't think things are going as well as you want them to be if she's your leading scorer.
And the tough thing is we don't have another data point, I don't think, because they got New Orleans, Louisiana Tech, Texas Southern, UNLV.
Right. No, you're right. They played the one that they played the games that we were kind of hoping that we would see something out of.
Yeah. So now we got to wait until like Kansas on the road, December 21st.
Right.
So we'll see over the next month. I mean,
yeah,
Nikki Conley can get them right, and I think they have enough talent, but especially in a Big 12 that, like we said, I don't know who like the leader is. TCU.
Right. I was going to say the Iowa State. I mean, it might be TCU.
Iowa State.
Iowa State is. I think Iowa State also will get right. That was a weird loss, but like if you're looking at teams with the best player, you just expect to do things like Audie Crooks and Sedona Prince are like those two.
Kansas State just lost to Duke today by 11.
Yeah, I saw that one. Ashlyn Jackson was going off too. Yeah, I'd probably say right now TCU and Iowa State are my front runners.
Okay,
but it's hard to say for sure because I don't think Iowa State's played anybody that great either. Yeah, no, they played Chicago State. Yeah, this is an awful schedule. I mean, they get South Carolina this week, so we'll see how they match up there. And then they get rebuilding Iowa, so like that's not really that great either. So like I don't know. We'll see.
I appreciate South Carolina just going around and playing everybody.
I know, right? It's like Don Staley's like, all right, this is a new team, kind of, but whatever. We'll just do the tour.
A tour. That's a good way of looking at it. Saying it. Like it feels like
it's great recruiting for her. It's like, hey, you want to go on a countrywide tour? Girl, come on, come play with me 5-star.
Go coast to coast, just playing whoever wants. UCLA, all right. I did.
Where's this game being played? Let me see. Because I know Dickies is getting the TCU game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's in Florida. Okay, so it's a tournament game.
Yeah. So
Fort Myers. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't have anything else here. North Texas men's plays Oregon State.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I wanted to try to make it out there. That's gonna be a very fascinating one.
Yeah, they play tonight. It's not like a do or die game or anything, but I would like them to win it after losing to McNeese. I don't think I ever talked about that McNeese game on here, but
the weird Texas Wesleyan game.
Oh Jesus!
Were they losing at halftime?
They were struggling. So yeah, they need to get on their feet at this point. And a team that showed a lot of promise and beat Minnesota early on has now struggled a little bit. So I would like them to beat Oregon State at home. I don't know if that's asking too much.
Yeah, Oregon State almost beat Oregon, so like they looked pretty solid. That's the only team they've played with like a pulse. That's also their only loss this year. So like I really don't know how good this Oregon State team is, but I am intrigued to see. I don't think it's a must win, but like I do think it's like you got to show me something in this one.
Yeah, you got to show me something. They're 117th in offense right now. I really thought the offense was going to be better. Like they struggled with Texas Wesleyan way too much on offense.
That's always a weird because like
shut them down.
It was a very weird one because like my friend texted me, he's like, I think they're losing to Texas Southern at halftime, and I was like, I think this exact verbatim. I texted him. I was like, usually because teams have that all the time where you play like a D2 team, D3 team, you're losing, and then they end up winning by like 40, right? And I texted him. I was like, if they're not winning within 8 minutes of the second half, there's something to be in trouble about. Now, granted, they were winning within 8 minutes, but then it never got really beyond. They never pulled away. Yeah, and so like they had the response that I expected, but yeah, like usually when that response happens, the other team crumbles and you're able to just like put your foot on the gas. But they weren't able to do that, so that's
Oregon State
yellow flag, not a red flag, not an orange flag, yellow flag.
Oregon State tonight, Northern Iowa on Thursday, High Point a week after that. So 3 games against top 125 teams. We'll learn. We'll know a lot about this team.
Ken Palm only has them as 4 and 2 point favorites in all those games. So
it's gonna be gonna be tight. I think that's all the the teams I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah, one team I want to watch still is UTSA men's. I haven't seen any of them.
I
They've
need
only
to
played
get a good look
3
at them. I
games.
don't think they've played anybody interesting
Played
yet.
3 games to this point. What are we doing here?
I know. Just get
They
that
played Troy tonight on the road, so maybe it'll give us something to talk about. But
hopefully.
that I'm just looking through like teams that I want to watch at some point, and that is one of them. So
Definitely.
we'll see. All right, let's get out of here. We have a lot of basketball to watch this week, these 2 weeks, so we'll keep you updated. We'll be back probably on Friday afternoon to recap the week that was. So stay tuned for that. Thank you to everybody for checking us out. Hope you'll have a good Thanksgiving and or spend time with family or whatever, or friends or whatever you got. So we'll be back later in the week and talk to y'all then.